just connect on cloud server. If yes, no cancel. All right. Lance, how are you this afternoon?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Simon. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Lance, we're just, I've got you gone a little bit quiet all of a sudden. Are you?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you better there. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name's Simon from Prudential Real Estate. For most of our landlords who know me, thank you and welcome back. To some of them, I can see that have been with us a few times, so thank you. Once again, the information I provide to you today is non-financial. If you do wish to make any further researches, and I'd recommend your own personal case, we're just going to talk about what are the benefits and some of the advantages through property that we can offer you. And our goal here at Prudential Real Estate is obviously to try and give you some information. It's a pleasure to have joined me today, Lance, from LTK Homes. Lance has been in the industry for a very long time, and the reason I've asked him to come along is because of his experience in building granny flats and what that means. Now, as a personal investor, I've got a couple of properties with granny flats. I keep that no secret, and it's been advantageous to me. But for many investors, you can produce an extra income, which is excellent. But Lance, probably first of all, let's talk about you. Tell us a bit about yourself, your company, your career.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. And you can hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Thank you.
Yeah, as you had touched on, I've been in the industry nearly 30 years now. I had to count those years just before this meeting, actually. So it's been a long time.
Yep.
Yeah, very quickly, my background, I'm a carpenter by trade, and then used to sort of progress through and worked on a lot of medium density and large commercial projects for many years, including residential. So for a big part of my career, I worked as a project manager for some big companies and continued some studies and ended up getting a master's degree in construction management. And then about 6 years ago, I decided to start our own business. So sort of come back to the housing residential sector, and sort of haven't looked back. And we've got a good team, long-term staff members, and we've built near on 80 homes now over the past 6 years that we've delivered, sort of in that local Western Sydney area.
Yep.
I'm from the Liverpool area, so sort of born and bred at Casula. So,
wow. Good. So you know our local area really well. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I guess today I want to talk to you about granny flats, and I know it's one of the parts that you do as a specialty. There's a lot of discussion. Look, from an investment perspective, I can tell you right now it's a great return. From a building perspective, what's the minimum requirements? How does it work? Do we go through council? Do we do a private certifier? And the new Greenbelt, how does that? Well, how does that all work?
Good question. Probably if we touch on people who might have an existing property, for example, which is probably the bulk of clients.
Yeah.
They might have an investment property, be it new or it's a bit older. Particularly if it's a bit older, it's more than likely on a block of land that might be bigger than 450 square metres.
Yeah.
So that is probably the first thing for clients to understand. The minimum requirement is that the land should be 450 square metres.
Okay.
So, if you're in an older area and your land was less than that, it may not be possible. There is some exceptions in certain pockets of certain council areas, but without doing some research, you really wouldn't know.
Okay.
So, as a first thing, 450 minimum land size is the first sort of hurdle. I always suggest people up front even just go and talk to council. That's free of charge. The landowner or the client is the customer in council's eyes. There's definitely no harm in just ringing council, or if you've got a spare bit of time, even go into council. Often gets better feedback, and just ask for a planner or a duty planner. And my experience with councils, they're there to help, I find. They'll often explain to you what may or may not be possible, some of the key controls. But having said that, don't always take what council say as gospel in discussion. They might say, oh, no, you can't do it for some reason. And I've had this happen many times over the years where, we can sometimes look at things in a different way, or with our consultants, and often use a different path, which is private certifier, or what's called complying development.
Sorry, the microphone has just gone there a bit, so I've lost that little bit there.
Sorry, is that back?
Yeah, that's back. Go for it.
Yeah.
So private certifier?
Private certifier. And again, this is not a given for every block of land. There's some certain controls we have to check on the property planning certificate.
Okay.
But again, that's something that we can look at for clients and do some investigations. But often, if we can, we would always prefer to use a private certifier.
Okay.
Sometimes this takes the hurdles out of dealing with council, and is definitely quicker. But sometimes just dealing with council is the only option.
So you suggested that probably going through a private certifier is quicker compared to council. I know you can't give that as an accurate figure, but what time frame are we sort of looking at it? Is it?
Look, we could, often get approvals through our private certifier in, probably 1 to 2 months.
Oh, okay.
Whereas council could be, 3 months is about the average, I say, even for something simple like a granny flat.
Wow, so it could add another 30 days. Okay.
Yeah, and that varies, often depending on the complexities or how busy council are often at times.
Okay, so it depends on them. Just a quick question. Obviously, you've been in construction, and let's say you put in the application to council or even through a private certifier. What obstacles are there? Can the neighbours object to a granny flat? Is there anything else that could object or cause some dramas to stopping them from building a granny flat?
Yeah, look, there's always the chance that a neighbour can object. But the other thing too, with granny flats or single story construction, more often than not, council may not even notify the neighbours.
Oh, okay.
So, it's often only, if it's a 2-story house, there's some, more risks with overshadowing, etc.
Okay.
But yeah, often council will sort of send a letter, but we found that's not always a given. So,
okay.
Is the risk of neighbours' complaints, but just because a neighbour complains doesn't mean that it'll stop your project. Ultimately everyone's got their right to raise their concerns. But if we keep within the rule book, which is council's development control plan, then there should be no reason why a non-valid complaint could stop the process. It just might slow it down a little bit.
Slow it down a little bit. So let's say you got the approval and they said, yep, let's go ahead. What time frame would it take to build a granny flat traditionally?
So we would obviously work with the clients to go through some selections and see what they want. We could even show them some granny flats we might have under construction, or some other of our homes, as to an idea of some finishes, or look at our display home that we would have at the time. But normally selections might only take a couple of weeks to be able to get things selected, final plans drawn up. And again, whether it's private certifier or council, depending on what that lead time is. Once we get to site, look, a granny flat, we can often get built in around that sort of 16 weeks.
Okay, so around about 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess
realistic figure.
So I'm just thinking, for what you mentioned, an owner today says, okay, I've got a great block of land, I've got an existing tenant in the house, and I've got space at the back. I meet the criteria of 450 squares. Now, for our owners, if you do decide to do this, please let us know, because there is a formality of advising the existing tenant. But let's say we said, okay, we consult with yourself, or we went to council, got an understanding, yes, we got the green light, consult with yourself. From the point that we put in the application, either through a private certifier, or alternatively a council, or probably let's go down to private certifier, that sounds better. Would I say within 6 months, you'd probably have that approved, ready to go and have a tenant in there? Would I be safe to say that?
It's possible, yeah.
Okay, that's not bad, because we're now in June, and if you're looking for something to need extra income for the next financial year, we've done the green light and say the first week of June, so that by December we would have a property ready to lease.
And if there's an existing house that's obviously tenanted, which would be likely, we could work around that, so there would be no need for obviously that tenant to move out or anything. They could
Yeah.
just continue, and we would work around them and
And
put
let them
some
know. That makes life
poles
and
in
easy.
place. And yeah.
Okay, so there's ways to work around even if there's this existing tenants. For us, in a management perspective, we just need to notify them correctly and go from there. Okay, so and obviously the returns. And look, I appreciate you can't give me, but what's a ballpark figure that a granny flat could cost you? Or where do they start from roughly?
Look, a basic one bedroom granny flat, for example, if you had sort of limited space,
Mm-hmm.
and if we're looking at a starting point with site costs, etc., could be even under or close to just being under 100,000 at the entry level.
Really? Wow, that's not bad. Okay.
And most of the granny flats, and again to highlight some design requirements, the maximum size is 60 square meters of floor area, and we can comfortably make a 2-bedroom granny flat work in 60 square meters.
Okay.
And look, again, subject to the site conditions and access and the slope of the land, for example, and existing services. They're the things we have to look at. But we find most of the time we do them, they might turn around that sort of 120 to 140,000 as a range.
As a range, depending on what fixtures and fittings you want and all that.
Yeah, for a 2-bedroom granny flat, and I guess the rental return on them is often quite good.
Well, I've just done a very basic calculation. I think I've been I'm going to go say 375 times 52 divided by an investment of 140,000. That's 13.9%. And I can tell you firsthand, and we've had the privilege of some of the newer ones being leased out at closer to 400 a week for a 2-bedroom. Gee, that's good return on money. And if you've got an existing home that's only returning you substantially, a 4%, that changes the configuration all around. You can turn to a positively geared home very quickly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, that's been really good, Lance. I've got a quick question here from one of the people now. I don't know if you can answer it, but he presently has a 6-bedroom home. Can he divide the home and make half of it into a granny flat? That would be more along the lines of a renovation or something like that. I think, to be fair,
look,
would I not be wrong?
Potentially. I mean,
Okay.
where it gets complicated with existing homes and it being an approved granny flat, you have to have fire separation. So you have to have like a firewall to separate the buildings completely with no shared access.
Okay.
And if it's 2-story, it's really difficult and can become quite expensive.
So it can become expensive. Okay.
That fire separation needs to also go through the floor. So,
okay.
It can get complicated.
So just recapping, if someone wanted to do something and say, "Yep, you know what, I've listened to this webinar, I'm going to go and take that next step," what's the first thing you should suggest to them to do?
Well, the first thing that we would do is, obviously they could give us a call, we get their details. The other thing to highlight too, other than the 450 square meters of land, is, if there's going to be an existing house, we need to factor that into the planning controls of the site coverage. So if it was, let's say, a 450 square meter block, which is like the smallest, and there was quite a large 1-story house there, for example, then, it may not be possible if there's not a big backyard.
Okay.
So we can very quickly look at that almost just off Google Maps and some other websites we have access to do like a desktop. Very quick assessment. Or even still, I'm happy to come out and just have a complimentary site inspection and just to have a look at what's possible.
Okay. Oh, that's nice of you. Okay. Wow. Okay. So pretty simple. If you do have a good block of land and you want to earn some extra income, the granny flat's the way to go. I think that's a given. And it sounds like probably the first thing they should do is call you, Lance.
Definitely just call our office.
What's your office number, Lance?
46062411.
46062411. So look, guys.
Or just have a look at our website, ltkhomes.com.au.
Yeah, that'll be the easier way, LTK Homes, and just take a look there online, and you'll find that. Well, Lance, that's been really good and insightful. So thank you kindly. It's good to hear from an actual builder of the granny flats. Now, to be fair, there's dime a dozen builders of granny flats, and I just want to make it clear that the reason I've selected to speak to Lance is because I can see that he's got on on the job experience, and it's not something that I don't have a financial interest in his company, neither does he have a financial interest in my company. So I want to make that clear to all of our clients. And been working with Lance just over 12 months now, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And clients have he's helped our clients as well. So I'd certainly recommend it. Look, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us today. It's been a real great pleasure. Lance, once again, thank you, mate. Your insight's been great, and I really appreciate it. And I would strongly encourage anyone who's interested to give Lance a call. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll talk soon. All the best. Thank you. See you, Lance. Cheers.